Alright, here's another episode. I don't know if anybody ever gets any notifications about these videos or whether they care to. I have tried that function before with a couple of different YouTube channels and it never works. So anyway, got my coffee. I've been away a bit because I got things to do. Just like everybody else, we all got things to do, right? I took down the tree stuff videos because, you know, I try to watch the videos before I put them up to make sure there's no errors and whatnot in them. This last time I didn't because I was in a hurry because I had to get ready because I was going to go off meandering around doing stuff. And then I got a chance to, I pulled up the video that had been seen the most of those. I thought, oh, I wonder what's so interesting about that one, yeah. So I pulled it up. And it had a really big mistake in there. And this is what happens when you get to be older, is sometimes you will be thinking something and it will come out the wrong way, right? It will come out the wrong way. So what goes on up in the old noggin doesn't always come out vocally in the correct way. So it said, I remember I said something like, well, I was make my back cut. It said something like, I'll make my back cut and then I'll go and do my notch or something like that. That's wrong. But what it was I didn't fully express what I was getting at. So you don't want to do a back cut and then a face cut, a notch second. You don't want to do that because it's dangerous. That's why I took it down. I just went ahead and I took them all off in case there was anything not right in there that came out. It's something came out wrong and it could have been a danger to somebody. I did not want anybody to get hurt. So I just went ahead and I took them all down. When I get a chance, I'll go through them again. But what I was getting at, I wrote it down so I would just, you know, read it again before I made this video because I don't want to forget or make it come out the wrong way again. But what I meant to say is after I do my back cut and I put in my wedge to keep it from pinching, I will go ahead because you should already have a notch. Okay, I always do a humble almost all the time. It's just habit. You could do any kind of a face cut you want. But the Humboldt was designed to get the most wood, you know, the most trunk of the tree, okay, to get the most of the trunk of the tree. Because, you know, back in the old days, they were looking to get lumber out of every tree that they felled, right? So, anyway, that's what the Humboldt came about. But most of the time I'll do the Humboldt. But the thing is that generally what I'll do is I'll do my face cut, and then I'll start doing my back cut, put in the wedge, and then I'll pull out the saw and put it on safety. You know, always engage the safety when you're not actually sawing, right? Prevent accidents. Anyway, put the saw off to the side. You can go look at the face cut, make sure everything's right, and then if it was a little hasty, I'll get the saw and I'll go and I'll clean up the face cut, right? So that's the last thing I'll do is I'll clean up the face cut if I think I need it to be cleaned up in a certain way to make sure that the tree falls in a certain way. So the wedge is there in the back to keep the space, and then I could just slide my saw bar back in there and then continue my cut. Or if I'm already most of the way cut, you know, I'm like right on the edge, I could keep the saw out, and I could just smack that wedge with the butt end of with the pole of the axe, you know, and that will drive it in and cause that slight shift in weight transfer, and there it'll go on the hinge in the direction that you want it. So yeah, that was like a bad mistake on my part, and I should have caught it, but I was in a hurry. You know, things happen when you're in a hurry, so I took all those videos down because I don't want anybody getting hurt. If I said something wrong, I don't want that on my conscience, you know, if somebody got hurt off that. So no. So I'll go back through those again. I'm going to be doing some cutting videos this summer, because I'm going to try to get some videos in, because I got some trees that need to be dealt with here on the property. And, you know, it's like riding a bicycle. You don't forget in that manner. You know, you're almost on autopilot when you've done it as much as I did in the past, especially when I was a young fella working for my dad. I'll show you different things in some videos, you know, and we can pull up the whiteboard here, and I can show you how to maneuver branches to go the way you want them to when you're cutting. When you've climbed a tree and you want a branch to go a certain way and whatnot, I'll show you how to do that. If I can, because, you know, climbing and sawing in a tree, you know, I don't have no fancy, you know, helmet cameras or anything. I just got a very basic camera that you guys are watching me through. Very basic. I think they call it flip camera. That's what it is. It's one of those flip cameras. Yeah, super cheap, super simple. That's the way I need it. So I don't need anything overly complicated these days. So what else? Yeah. So I was in a kind of a bit of a hurry to get on out of here, get everything packed up and out, because I got a ride on down to Pennsylvania, and I wanted to go down there, and I wanted to speak with Amos Miller, and I did. It was a funny situation, let me tell you. See, the Amish are very standoffish folks, and they don't trust you immediately. So I went down there to talk to him about some stuff, and he didn't introduce himself to me at first, you know, and so I went in there, and it's very hard to find his place, but I dug it up. I'm going to tell you a funny little story first, and then I'm going to segue into my situation with Amos Miller, right? So I was digging and digging and digging, trying to find Amos Miller, and, you know, he's difficult he's a difficult character to find, you know. I mean, and you can't blame him for what all he's been through. Now, so I actually, through some Amish teenagers who could barely speak regular English, by the way, they got me onto this Amish fella, and they said, "Oh, this man knows Amos Miller," and so I went to the address, right? I got my ride to take me to that address. I said, "Okay, let's go here." So we went there. They waited outside. I went in. It was in a cellar. Okay. I felt like in the movies where you're gonna go and you're gonna get knocked off, right? So anyway, I went down to this cellar, and there's this fella down there, this Amish feller, and he's got a whole bunch of. He's got a desk. He's not facing me. He's got a whole bunch of stuff on this desk and a lamp, believe it or not. So, anyways, so I walk in. I said, "I'm looking for Amos Miller," and this guy turns around and he looks at me. He's sitting in his chair. He's looking at me, Amish beard, hat, the whole 9 yards, right? And he says, "Okay." And I said, "Are you Amos Miller?" I said, I'm looking for Amos Miller because I want to do, possibly do some business or have him direct me to somebody where I could do some business, right?" And he says, "Well, I'm not Amos Miller." He says, "How did you find me?" He says, "I know Amos Miller." He says, "But how did you find me?" And I said, "A lot of digging, and with the help of some teenage Amish boys, I made it here. And a little help probably from God." And he laughed. And then he immediately gave me the name and address on a piece of paper. Amos Miller. And his farm address and everything. The whole 9 yards. Handed it to me. Talked to him a little bit. He voted for Trump. Okay, and he was hoping that some things would calm down a bit because of that transaction, that transition. And then I said, "Okay, thank you, and see you later. Going to go see Amos Miller." Went out to Amos Miller's farm, and I went in. I saw a lot of Amish women working. They were packing stuff. Not going to go into all that too much. There was a couple of Amish men. One was doing this and that, talking to different people and everything. He looked to be in charge, so I went up to him and I said, "Sir, I'm looking for Amos Miller." I said, "I've come a long way looking to speak to him." So he didn't say he was Amos Miller. So I told him, I said, "I want to do some business." He said, "Well, I'll think about that," or something like that. And then he walks off. That was it, right? Just walking off, doing other stuff, talking to other people. Felt like I was being, ignored. Like I was getting my chain jerked, So I was standing around. He wasn't paying no attention to me. So I just basically went directly back up to him and I said, "Sir," I said, "I don't know if you know Amos Miller or not." I said, "But this fella at this place directed me to him." "Oh, you talked to him?" "Yeah." "Well, I'm Amos Miller." I said, "Oh, okay." So I had a little chat with Amos Miller and about all the nonsense with the government that had been going on with him these past few years. And I told him, I said, "Mr. Miller," I said, "the thing that you're doing here is you're providing clean food to people without stuff that people don't want in it." And I said, "There's a lot of people out there that feel the same way that I do. So if you ever have a problem again, you get somebody to call me and I'll put the word out and we will have people handle your problem for you." He said, "Oh, wow." He says, "Thank you." I said, "I'll get former military guys involved. We'll sort that out post haste." And he smiled. He says, "I don't think we'll be having any more problems with them." I said, "Oh?" I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, let's just say the attorneys on the government side got a few calls from some people who will remain nameless because I don't know who they are. They basically told them to knock it off or else. It's so the attorneys wouldn't do anything for the government. They told Amos Miller's attorneys what happened, and then it all went away. So you see, when you stand up and you say, knock it off or else, you know, things happen. So you got to be able to use your rights, okay? Alright, I'll come back in another one. Not sure what I want to talk about, but I'll come back in the second video. So I'll see you there.